Welcome to the first of a series of sessions designed to enable your development as a teacher or manager. The programme is the result of a collaboration between the City and Guilds Centre for Skills Development and the Centre for Education in the Criminal Justice System, part of the Institute of Education, University of London. Improving the range of skills of people serving sentences within the criminal justice system, and indeed of disadvantaged groups more generally, is a good thing. But for teachers and trainers, it can also be challenging. The impact of existing guidance and curricular materials could be improved with these learners in mind, and that is what this series of sessions sets out to do. You do not necessarily have to commission an independent trainer to deliver this CPD programme. We have designed it so that it could be delivered by someone within your own organisation. There can be advantages for you in this kind of approach. It is cheaper. You feel very responsible for it and get to know it. As you no doubt tell your learners, no pain, no gain. However, the Centre for Education in the Criminal Justice System may be available to facilitate sessions if this better suits your circumstances. We have designed the sessions to include information, resources and activities, and to be run in groups or at least pairs. If you find it difficult to meet in person, you might want to explore the possibilities of online synchronous meetings or even set up a Skype or phone conversation. We intend that the programme can be adapted to fit your own priorities. The sessions offer you some information to take forward in ways that are useful to you. Overall, the programme offers an accessible overview and a framework for CPD rather than many detailed sessions. The programme has the following strengths. 1. Before we prepared the programme, we reviewed the evidence base. The guidance draws on strategies that have been evaluated as effective, either through research or consensus of good practice. 2. We provide you with the space for reflection on your own knowledge of good practice and the knowledge of your colleagues. 3. We give specific guidance on teaching learners serving a community sentence or who are on probation. 4. Much of this guidance is also relevant to the teaching of other disadvantaged groups. This is how Day describes continuing professional development. It is the process by which, alone and with others, teachers review, renew and extend their commitment as change agents to the moral purposes of teaching, and by which they acquire and develop critically the knowledge, skills and emotional intelligence essential to good professional thinking, planning and practice. We agree with Day that continuing professional development is an active process that teachers do rather than have done to them. This CPD programme is appropriate for several different audiences. Primarily, it is designed for professionals who teach or work with people serving a custodial sentence or who are on probation. So it may be useful to include members of your organisation who work on careers advice, resettlement or community work. In particular, the session on exit strategies may have wider relevance, as may the sessions on assessment and learner context. The CPD programme is also relevant for teachers or trainers of learners with a criminal record. Over 30% of males over 30 have a criminal conviction. That proportion is probably higher in disadvantaged groups. There's also much in the CPD sessions which is relevant for teaching other disadvantaged learners in almost all the sessions. Indeed, much of the evidence base is drawn from the wider pool of research in adult basic skills. As many of you have no doubt experienced, getting CPD right is not easy. The major problem is that the things suggested are seen as irrelevant or are simply never actually used. Yet there is always a lot more to learn. We have several suggested principles to follow in developing your CPD. First, you need a coherent plan for what CPD you are going to do and how you are going to implement it, for at least the medium term. Second, the planned CPD needs to be relevant to teachers in your organisation and context. We think the best way to achieve this is to meet and talk about what you feel you need. Consulting your learners could also be helpful. Our programme does not assume that you will do each of the sessions described below. To really make headway on literacy or the importance of exit strategies or making formative assessment work well may involve staff in a lot of work, so you may want to prioritise. Alternatively, you might like to take a broad sweep and plan for extension activities at a later stage. The point is, the planning, which is what this session is about, should involve everyone in making sensible choices. Third, the CPD should involve you in active, collective participation. There is really quite a lot of evidence to show how important this is, and reflecting on your own experience will probably confirm that. Your CPD is about practical stuff. It isn't much use if you don't know how to actually use it. Fourth, the CPD should develop teachers' knowledge of subject content, pedagogy and underlying principles. More of this shortly. And finally, your plan should not only identify the key areas for CPD and the facilitator, but also how everyone involved is going to be supported to put new ideas into practice. For example, do they have opportunities to share experiences, resources and difficulties? Do they need to be given space to speak to each other and to network with those outside your organisation? Further planning may be needed if you encounter these issues. When preparing for CPD sessions, remember that there are 3 types of resources or documents that you can use. For each session, we provide a set of PowerPoint slides which offer information, a task or tasks which involve participants in discussion and in trying out activities, and a list of resources that can support the session but also support practitioners in implementing ideas in the classroom and beyond. Some of these resources are extensive and can be the basis for quite a bit of further CPD. The sessions will introduce you to techniques that you may wish to pursue using the resource links provided. Here are the sessions. 1. Planning your CPD. How can our programme work for you? That's this one that we're doing now. 2. Learners' contexts. 3. Motivating learners. 4. Assessment. 5. Literacy. 6. Numeracy. 7. ICT. 8. Embedding learning. And 9. Employer engagement and exit strategies. We have tried to introduce you to a range of information in each of the sessions so that there should be something there for everybody, both basic information but also introducing those of you who are experienced to some things that are likely to be new to you. The evidence base. Wherever possible, the material in this CPD programme is based on national and international evidence relating to teaching and learning of people with criminal records. The programme also draws on adult basic skills literature. The CPD programme also draws on accounts of good practice from practitioners and learners. The CPD programme recognises your own teaching experience as evidence and gives space for this. There are 5 principles running through our CPD based on the evidence review. The first principle is that teachers and trainers need to promote learner-focused teaching that encourages autonomous learning. We learn better when we know why we are doing something, and we are then motivated to learn more. Nurturing that motivation is important, and we have to critically review our work to see if we are making progress. The second principle is that participatory teaching methods make CPD more effective. The third principle is that development of teachers' subject knowledge is, of course, important. The fourth is that working with a group of colleagues or a community of practice is a powerful way of developing the implementation of CPD. It is motivating and supports reflection. It can be hard to reflect all by yourself. And as a final principle, the evidence shows that leadership has a central role, as good leadership helps to create an ethos that is supportive of CPD, Leaders have a pivotal role in leading change and helping to create a vision for their staff and organisation. We can also see why these principles matter in practice. Looking at our third principle, teachers benefit from sound subject knowledge in several ways. First of all, they could learn about effective teaching methods that they are not familiar with. For example, in the literacy session, we introduced a method of teaching reading comprehension called reciprocal teaching. It took quite a bit of time to develop reciprocal teaching, and quite a number of research studies have shown it to be effective. The session on literacy helps teachers and trainers to find out more about this method. Secondly, CPD for subject knowledge is not so much about the teacher being able to perform a particular task themselves, comprehend a passage, calculate area and perimeter, etc. More importantly, the teacher benefits from having an explicit knowledge of the processes involved so that they can explain them. So you might be able to manipulate fractions yourself, but can you think of all the ways in which fractions can be expressed? Part whole, as a number on a number line, as a divisor, and so on. Thirdly, it's helpful to understand the difficulties students experience with specific subject matter. For example, with decimals, learners often fail to see a decimal as a number. So they can easily see that 345 is larger than 67, but what about 0.345 and 0.67? It's a very common mistake to think that 0.347 is larger than 0.67. An awareness of learners' conceptions and misconceptions is invaluable to the teacher and comes from dialogue between the teacher and student, which can result from participatory methods. And how about the importance of communities of practice? To define communities of practice, they are groups of people who share a concern or a passion for something they do and learn how to do it better as they interact regularly. In CPD, both action and reflection are required, and both have individual and social dimensions. For example, if you were trying out different ways of motivating learners based on ideas in that session, you would need to see how they worked in practice. You would need to think about that individually and then share ideas and experiences with colleagues to reflect and take things on to the next stage. The reflection should have a critical edge. Brandon and Charlton, 2011, suggest that communities of practice need to be creative, spontaneous and self-directed, and that principles of cultivating successful communities of practice will include open dialogue between all participants and activities that combine familiarity and excitement. As part of the CPD, group sessions should be scheduled where teachers, managers and learning support assistants can work on selected tasks such as planning, reflecting, reviewing and sharing resources. If at all possible, this should be fun and could be done over a cup of coffee and a cake, or even a drink in the pub. Here we try to provide you with some good ideas and to facilitate your work with others. You need to make space to apply these ideas and to set up working groups with other professionals. Even talking it through with one other person is better than going it alone. Please turn to the Session 1 activity, which helps you plan your CPD with others in your organisation. Thank you for listening. We hope that this session has included some ideas that will be useful to you in your practice and in your professional development. For more information, please contact Jane Hurry at the Institute of Education Centre for Education in the Criminal Justice System.